are you?
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.
Welcome to the 34th episode of News Dump, where we run through the hottest topics in the Lewis County news scene and discuss. I am Gentleman Adventurer Aaron Vantile, joined as always by 5th ballot Hall of Fame hopeful Eric Schwartz and Little Miss Friendly contestant Claudia Yaw. Claudia, how are you today?
I'm going to kick those 6-year-olds' butts.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Claudia just found out about Little Miss Friendly last week, and she's been really working out the past 6-7 days. We're ready for that Southwest Washington Fair.
Very stoked.
Astute listeners will remember Claudia was extremely interested in the pageant, and hopefully the fair will return someday and she can cover it, which she has already happily volunteered for, I believe. It is Sunday, January 31st. There's a misspelling of my notes there. And we need to clear up a bit of confusion after last week's episode. It sounds like we may have some sort of apology. Nope. My producer is actually waving me off. We'll cut this part in post. And I guess if you guys don't have any other introductory news, we can get right into our topics for the week.
Let's roll.
All right. I will say this episode is much tamer than last week from what we've got on the show notes. There are no hot, contentious topics. We can just have some fun with the news. How's that sound, guys?
Oh, gee. Sounds dandy.
Great. First topic, eligible Lewis County seniors struggle to get vaccinated. Well, maybe not quite as chipper
Lighthearted?
as we'd hoped.
Elderly folk cannot find vaccination for a pandemic that is claiming their lives?
Although many older Lewis County residents are now eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine under the first tier of Phase 1B, and that's confusing just to read. Many report frustration and confusion about how and where to get one, and with limited supplies and no clear timeline for future allocation, county officials can't offer residents much assurance. Lewis County Seniors President Ron Averill, former big-time Lewis County newsmaker, says, "You're talking about a population where many of us don't even have internet," he said. "And if they do, they easily become confused. And I can tell you the process of getting into the system is not easy." So, Claudia, did you cover this story?
I did.
And how was your experience talking to the seniors about whether or not they can get vaccinated?
People are so confused. I had a caller who was telling me, he was 84, and he was telling me him and all of his friends were kind of waiting for someone to call them. They thought they were on some sort of list, and they weren't really taking initiative, and that's kind of the big takeaway from this is people are going to have to be really patient and diligent and take initiative to try to go find a vaccine. There is no centralized system, which is a big frustration. The county is not taking on that central role. It's this fragmented network of individual providers. So it's confusing.
Didn't you mention that you had a gentleman call and tell you that I have a computer, but I'm a little afraid of it, like it might burn my house down?
Yeah, I mean, he was, in his 80s, you know.
There was the other quote I
understandable.
loved. The other quote I loved in there was from the 84-year-old Chehalis resident. He said, "I was thinking I'm on a list somewhere. Some people are aggressive about calling their doctors. Most of us are sitting here thinking, I don't want to be a pest."
Yeah, that's very understandable. I feel for the guy.
Yeah, and like navigating that system is totally confusing. You can go on the DOH website and there's multiple different providers, each with their own communication system and sign-up process, and like all the appointments are probably going to be gone, so you have to be persistent. So
There's a nice story, not a nice story, but a story, I believe it was in the Tri-City Herald over the weekend, where a person had gotten an elderly person in their life and drove them all the way to Everett because they had figured out that they'd be able to get the vaccination there. By the time they got there, all of the vaccinations had been taken, and despite the fact that they had a spot locked in, they didn't end up getting it. So that's got to be extremely frustrating.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't sound great at all.
And people are really mad that folks are driving over county lines to get vaccinated, but our public health director basically said, that's going to happen, and if you can get a vaccine that way, do it.
We had a letter writer, not to keep talking over you, Aaron.
Go right ahead.
A letter writer, I won't name him, but was complaining about the people coming from out of the county to get the very rare local vaccine here. And eventually he went and got his somewhere else too, because he figured out that that was going to be the only way, and that required like camping in a parking lot and trying to be first in line.
And you, of course, mean a local allotment of the vaccine,
Yeah.
not some Lewis County-centric hybrid vaccine that's being offered all around.
Oh God, no! I hope there's no like there's
Making
just
our own.
garage scientist in the Logan district cooking up their own cure.
Ah, yes, this is it. All right, the next item. Broad Lewis County Coalition supports bill to get internet from PUDs. So a bill to let public utility districts give people internet. Got a lot of support from Lewis County people this week who just want the internet, damn it.
So they can get their vaccines.
Yeah, they can check the World Wide Web and see where, go to vaccine.com and see who locally is cooking it up for them. Randy Mueller, Port of Chehalis CEO, was for it, as were some school and hospital officials. Some private telecommunications companies opposed the bill, which, sorry? I, for one, am no friend of major telecommunications industries. I don't know where you two stand on that.
They were pretty overshadowed in that testimony. They were in the minority.
I think that's fair. They've had plenty of time and resources to do things like, offer internet to people that live on a certain side of the street that may not be able to get it otherwise and have to settle for satellite, and they have not done so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, State Rep Drew Hansen, and we haven't mentioned yet, this is yet another Claudia Yaw joint. So back to back to open
Congrats,
the podcast. But Rep Drew Hansen, a Democrat from Bainbridge Island, said, if you were around in the 1930s, the private power companies might have said, well, this is unfair. Government shouldn't enter this. This is unfair competition. Thankfully, the voters of Washington state disagreed. And I thought that rang true.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting situation where, like, almost 100 years ago, there was a very similar fight where electricity companies weren't really getting rural residents connected. Mm-hmm. I just think that's a fun little history tidbit.
Fun little nugget
Well, it's
there.
because they can't make as much money, right? So if you
Yeah.
build out all that infrastructure and you're initially only going to reach a neighborhood of, 20, like where's that in comparison to the same, geographic space in a big city where you can hit the 250, 300 different people, bills all in the same spot. So, but
Yeah.
it goes back to your series. I say your because you worked on it, Claudia, the broadband series that the newsroom produced last year. Did that inform your reporting on this at all, or at least background or context?
I think it did. I had a very small part in that. I came in like in the last week where everyone had been working on it for months, but definitely Celine's reporting and Jackson's reporting and Eric's was, definitely informative on this, and just like hearing everyone paint a picture of a really horrible situation of kids not being able to go to school. And the Valley View CEO came and testified and described like healthcare centers just going offline and having to turn patients away. So it really touches like every aspect of life in Lewis County.
So the big question, does this mean Washington is going to do a socialism?
If they do, it appears it will be a bipartisan socialism,
Yeah.
which
Interesting.
I'm told are better than a partisan socialism. If you commit one of those, you can be in big trouble. Lindsay Pollock was a commissioner, or she is a commissioner, but she was in favor of it. Public roads ensure we have access to travel and commerce. Public peace officers ensure we have access to safety. Public hospitals provide basic medical care. We do not have an equivalent public safety net for modern communication. So,
Well stated by the new commissioner. All right, another story. This is not exactly local, but I thought it was fun. Children want to name a dinosaur. So, the only dinosaur fossil ever found in Washington, which seems suspect. Nobody's
Yeah, when I
ever
read
found
that.
a dinosaur bone here. My kid's been digging in the backyard for nothing.
I had no idea that there was only one.
So, the only dinosaur fossil ever found in Washington was on Sucia Island in the San Juans in 2012. It's about 80 million years old, I guess, like you could even know that. And some kids in the Franklin Pierce district want it recognized by the legislature.
Jeez.
So the proposed name for the dinosaur is the Susiosaurus rex, which in print looks like the Suchosaurus rex, and that is exactly what you would expect a bunch of grade school kids to name a dinosaur. Good on those kids, just name it the Suchosaurus rex. Anyway, the bill was introduced.
It doesn't even look like that at all. If you're
Also, I'm pretty
illiterate,
sure
maybe.
scientists named it that.
Well,
Not some
No, he's
6-year-old.
saying that it looks like that, but
Oh,
it really
okay.
doesn't. It's just Aaron and his,
What? If you let my kid name a dinosaur, you would want to. There's a 90% chance that he would call it the Suckosaurus Rex or like the Fortniteosaurus or something.
He'd spend all that time thinking about naming it that and never wonder whether or not he should.
Exactly.
It's a Jurassic Park Easter egg, people.
Yep, we got it. So the bill was introduced last session and passed the House by a wide margin, but did not get a hearing in the state Senate. How dare they? Melanie Morgan, a Democrat from Tacoma, reintroduced the bill this session, and I wish it the best of luck, but maybe workshop the name a little bit. So, and this is actually our last local news item before we get into a news segment I'm introducing.
Oh, boy.
Sports are back. The first official team practices are Monday, February 1st. That's tomorrow. Football games start February 13th. The last football game was December 2019, featuring a local team in which the Onalaska Loggers won the state 2B championship by defeating the Kalama Chinooks. Shout out to former Let's Take About It guest Mazen Sadi and the Onalaska Loggers. And this is a sigh of relief for local high school teams in the WIAA's Season 1 sports schedule. That includes football, volleyball, girls soccer, and cross country. They have been waiting to see if the West region would reach all 4 metrics required by the state to move into Phase 2. Season 1 spans 7 weeks from February 1st to March 20th. You guys ready for some football?
Well, and other sports, it's not just football, Aaron.
Are you going to go watch some cross country?
It's possible, It's the king's sport, as they say.
It is not.
I don't know if anyone's ever said that.
2019 though, the last football game that happened here? 2019? That is crazy.
Yeah, that was December 4th, 2019,
Wow.
because it was the 2019-20 sports year. Football is played entirely in the early half of the year. And then, the 2020-2021 sports season is what we would theoretically be in now, but everything's been postponed, and so football will start, and the first game will be February 13th.
Yeah, we're getting to work
stuff.
on our annual, well, it wasn't annual because we missed one, but our football special section on Monday as practices begin. So you'll see the Nightcrawler out there if you happen to be at a practice taking photos. Eric Trent has given notice to the Business Beat that he's going to be doing his real job of being sports editor here pretty soon. So there's that.
Do you think he pulled like when Kramer got the call the deli was off strike? He's like, we're back.
He was thrilled. I know he was in a great mood. He came in and told me the story was posted, and he had a great lead because it's been 420 days since any high school football or team played football, and then he even updated it for print by making it 421 the following
diligent.
day.
But who's counting?
I have to say, I have heard from outside of our area, people are very unhappy to see just 2 regions move into the next round of Jay Inslee's, is it Healthy Washington? Healthy Washington plan? Healthier Washington? Jay Inslee's plan. J-Bone's plan. I'm seeing it mostly from up in Clallam County, Forks, as
Is that
everyone
how you
knows.
pronounce it? Clallam County?
Clallam, yeah. It's
I
Clallam.
always thought it was Clallam.
No, we would know you were an outsider right away, so we would dunk you in the Solduck River after that.
Believe you.
So yeah, no, that's sad to see. You see a lot of coaches out there calling on just keep your phases. That's fine, but can we just start all sports at the same time? It's already going to be no spectators. So
I read that it would be maybe up to 200 spectators in some sports.
oh really?
Which for some football games I've attended over the years is the double capacity.
Yeah, that's true. You can spread out.
I have been to many games where there are less than 200 people.
Well, for the
there.
2Bs, it won't make a huge difference, right? Aren't they all more or less in the same? I mean, aside from Kalama, is there
Yeah, for the most part, I think.
Wahkiakum?
I think Wahkiakum moved, didn't it?
I'm not sure.
I think
You're the
Wahkiakum's-
former sports
I
editor.
think Wahkiakum's in like the Pacific region, so they're okay. Yeah, I looked at it earlier today, but I can't remember the specifics.
I think there was like a turning point for me mentally, and I'm sure it's very stupid. But for me, when live sports came back, I felt a lot better, like mentally, and it was just there's something normal I could watch on the TV. So I think that'll mean the same for the kids that are able to do something normal,
Yeah.
even if it's in late January, early February, as opposed to when they normally play. So
Yeah, it'll be nice
excited.
to get that back. It'll be another diversion. something to take your mind off of the general state of disrepair in the country.
And since when has Lewis County ever been on the front end of advancement? Like
Schools.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's school.
but
Yeah, that's
you're
true.
right.
You're true. That's right. Schools, they were in first. But
Kind of fun to be like, oh, suckers. Like, yeah, we're the only two regions. Hee hee hee.
We snuck in. Lewis County very much feels like the kid in the group project that never showed up for any of the meetings, and then the project gets like a B+, and they're like, I helped.
yeah, I mean, Cowlitz County's got to feel like a big loser here. When you look at the 19th district, is what makes me think of that, because that's Lewis County, Grace Harbor County, and so both of them are in. Is it Senator Jeff Wilson? I didn't get his name wrong. He was like, why can't I eat a hamburger in Longview if I can eat a hamburger in Aberdeen? So, I mean, they've really kind of got to feel left out. But, it's the science, Aaron, and very few people understand it as well as I do.
Why don't they make the whole plan? Why don't they make the whole plan out of the black box? All right, and so it's time for my new segment. I like this a lot.
You didn't even run this by Claudia or I, and we're the talent here. You're just the producer.
I'm sorry.
Uh-oh. What's going on?
This is called Tales from the Takes page, aka the opinion section.
Oh boy.
So I have referenced two of the columns that ran recently in the Chronicle. They are quite different. One of them is a guest commentary, and one of them is a regular columnist. So first up, we have Jamie Lund, former Centralia School Board of Directors member. He wrote a column about how Lewis County has enough public land. It does not need any more. He's talking about the TransAlta land, which is a 9,600 acre tract, which is being absorbed by the Department of Fish and Wildlife to be slowly developed.
Well, it hasn't yet. It's
going to be.
It's on track to be. Yes.
Yes, to be developed into a recreation area. And yeah, I just thought it was kind of an odd example of the point he was making, as I don't think anyone is beating down the door to acquire 10,000 acres around a former mine that is partially in the middle of the reclamation process.
See, I saw that note here on the show notes, and I thought you were just putting it on a T for me.
Go ahead, go
We have
off,
the
King.
industrial park at TransAlta is a thing that exists out that way. I don't think it's
200 acres.
I don't think it's still on course. At least I haven't heard about it. Be something worth looking into. But I know a few years ago they announced what was going to be the largest solar panel site in the state of Washington. So there's that as well. I don't think that developable land outside the floodplain is I don't think it's all that outrageous that you would want to develop that. I think there's better arguments against it. But I was also blown away by some of his numbers, and I know across the West, it's more so than in the East. There's so much government-owned property, but when you think half the state already, I mean that's a pretty big chunk that is already owned by the state. And his take was even the other half they regulate. So if they own one half, regulate the other to achieve the same end. I don't know. It's a good take. I could see how you could disagree with it though.
It's I guess what I don't see is that if it doesn't go to Fish and Wildlife, what would happen to that 9,600 acres, and what would happen to it during the downtime between it having owners? If TransAlta is not using it for anything, and they essentially, give it up, they have no use for it anymore, what is going to happen to it that would be better than Fish and Wildlife taking it over and saying, hey, you can, hunt and fish here?
Timber company, maybe?
Okay.
My reaction was, just the headline, there's enough public land in Lewis County. I was like, is there? Because I have to drive 30 minutes each way to get to any sort of, significant public park with any amount of wildlife whatsoever.
Well, it's because
that
you
I'm
live in
allowed
the
to
big
be on.
city.
I live in Chehalis.
Chehalis and Centralia. We are the Twin Cities, the metropolis.
But even out on the
once
east
you hit
side,
Highway
how
12,
much is public? Even though it's this beautiful wilderness that we really market ourselves as, is it public and available for all?
Gifford Pinchot National Forest is pretty much everything on the right side of the highway, and a good chunk of it on the left until you get to Mount Rainier National Park, and then you've got the National Monument out there for Mount St. Helens. But I think we have more than most.
We do have a lot. And it is worth pointing out that just because it's Fish and Wildlife land does not mean it can't be logged, as I understand it.
Sure.
There is logging operations going on.
Well, as long as we can log it,
Forest.
I'm on the same. I'm on
Yeah,
I'm
you
on
know
your
what?
page.
Let's log the whole thing. I mean, we took... Hey, has anybody tried drilling for oil out there?
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, TransAlta.
Some
what have you
coal
been
out
doing?
there.
No.
Anyway, so that was our first take. It was thought provoking.
Yeah. It's not bad.
And our second one, I like this a lot. It was from Brian Mitke. It was Whom Has COVID Taken? Here's One Beloved Man's Story. And he talks about the life of Rob Lee, former standout baseball player, I believe, in Morton. It sounds like he lived in Toledo later on. And he was a regional professional bowler. His parents owned the Morton Bowling Alley, and he managed security for his church after becoming disabled. Mickey wrote a really nice, heartfelt piece on him, and I thought it did a good job of humanizing what we would normally just see as statistics and related to the pandemic.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
No, I agree.
You're not going to disagree with me on this?
It was also like a direct. It was directly confronting the pre-existing conditions argument, which I know I get really frustrated reading about, just because I also know people who have died, and they wouldn't have died despite their pre-existing conditions if they did not get COVID-19. If they did not get the illness.
Argument.
Yeah, it's very easy. So this was a guy that had major medical issues that he had overcome in many ways. Very active in his church. He was the head of security in his church, which he took a lot of pride in that. And then, I don't know, Brian Mitke, former editor, longtime columnist, is just gifted in terms of telling a story. So like just the slow breakdown of his health was kind of heart-wrenching to me. Just thinking he's getting better for a day and then feeling like somebody's standing on his chest and then dying alone.
Yeah.
Because that's how people die when they have COVID-19.
Yeah.
So it was very sad. Got a lot of attention on Facebook, and I'd say most of it was positive, but there were some trolls in there as well. So,
naturally.
Yeah, you can't keep them at bay.
I like that a lot. Congrats, Mitke. You've done it again.
I'm surprised. Maybe you have it somewhere else on the notes. Do you have Michael Wagar's column anywhere?
He shows up in Facebook comments of the week.
Okay, I'll save it for then, because I also enjoyed Michael's column, but I know that a lot of people did not.
There was some hater. The haters were furious, as they say. So we move now to our business feature roundup. First one, a couple of hair places.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, we got another one coming in Tuesday's paper. Eric gets on trend, and he just keeps going.
I think it's one of those things where you write about one, and then somebody sees it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well I know another hair place."
That's exactly what it is, and we just kind of keep pulling the thread, and I'm fine with it. I think he accomplishes a lot. But you asked what we had tomorrow before we talk about that one. It looks like Courtyard Salon and Spa.
Okay.
In Centralia, so that'll be coming on Tuesday.
Tune in next week when we talk about Courtyard Salon and Spa. But this week we've got Jay's Barbershop in Centralia. Jay's Barbershop perseveres after owner took second job to survive early days of the pandemic. When Mary Amos gave up her career as a certified nursing assistant 8 years ago, it was for good reason. Her mother, Jay Sand, who owned Jay's Barbershop, needed another hairstylist and more help running the business. And it goes on to explain how she got involved and everything about the business. Looks great.
Yeah,
There's a little kid getting his haircut there.
A tough lady
So
too.
cute.
Her second job, according to Eric Trent, was a plywood factory, which I thought, is that a mill? I did a plywood factory. Anyways, she worked in a plywood factory, and then for a time was doing both jobs, so working at night at the factory and then during the day cutting hair. So I thought it was a nice little story of perseverance, which his business features often turn into, is you're just kind of saying how people have gotten through this very, very difficult time. And I don't know, I found a lot admirable about her.
It was a nice story. Trent always does good work there. And our second business feature is the hair company in Chehalis powers through the pandemic. This one is owner Kaylee Hansen started the salon 3 years ago. After the previous salon owner she operated her booth out of closed. And the hair company is 91 South Chehalis Avenue. Where is South Chehalis? Is that over kind of by the courthouse?
I'm not sure where the road is.
Don't you live in Chehalis?
I do.
It's a big city, and
It's massive.
I always drive based off landmarks anyways. I never know what road I'm on.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, there are 5 other hairstylists operating out of the hair company, including Kayla Bradley, Caitlin Hadley, Lindsay Crawford, Tiffany Lishka, and Lauren Sayers. There's also another esthetician, Jenny Quinlan, who does facials, skincares, waxing, and other services. So, another cool story from our boy Eric Trent.
Can we appreciate the subheader? Stick to your roots.
Yeah.
So good.
He's really good at those.
Yeah.
He's
It's a
really
gift.
really very good at those. I liked the part where trying to style or work on hair around a mask has been a little challenging. There have been a few times where Hanson has accidentally caught a client's mask while combing their hair. One time, one of the hairstylists was doing a men's haircut with clippers and accidentally cut the string of the client's mask around their ears.
Oh no!
You're trying to kill me! L&I finds him before the mask hits the floor.
Oh, let's not get into that these days. Today.
Oh, that's right. This is a
happy podcast. We're in cruise
back.
control here.
I am so
Yeah.
excited for hairstylists too. I mean, I guess they're reopened. I don't feel super comfortable going, but I'm excited for the day where I feel very safe going because I've been cutting my own hair via YouTube tutorials and
Really?
it's tough. Y'all heard of the unicorn method?
No. Go on.
You take all of your hair and you put it in a ponytail right on your forehead, and then you cut it in a line. And it's supposed to make layers.
You just like cut it like.
Can't you tell, guys? Can't you tell these layers? Thoughts? You tell me. Isn't it great?
It looks
great. It looks great.
Great work.
I'll have
So
to try
happy
that.
you are cutting your hair based
What
on
I'm saying
YouTube
is they're
videos.
doing God's work. Like, it's so complicated.
You're not alone either, though, because I think most of these profiles on hair businesses, they'll mention that most of our clients have come back, but not, the older ones haven't, or, people that are just super taking every precaution that they can. So I think
Yeah.
that's an industry that's still hurting. All because of the unicorn method. Damn you, YouTube!
So when you got done, did you watch the video and be like, this is going to be a cinch? And then
Yes.
did you get done and you're like, nailed it? Or be like, oh no? Or was
My
it somewhere
hair
in
is
between?
so, wild and curly anyway that I feel like even if I really effed it up, it'd be like, whatever, But I'm definitely overconfident in a lot of ways, so I'll watch the tutorial and be like, easy. Give me the scissors.
Well, I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, congratulations on the haircut, Claudia. And now time for our People's Champion of the Week. Centralia High School senior Lily Allen.
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, you picked it unilaterally without, asking Claudia.
Is there
or I,
any? Do you want to go into your suggested section?
I think
of
that's a
villain
great
of the
one.
week next?
but Villain of the week would get this podcast on the charts, my friend.
Oh, a triple murder villain of the week. So, through a partnership between Centralia High School and the Salvation Army, senior Lily Allen recently coordinated a winter sock drive and collected nearly 400 pairs of new socks for those in need over the course of about 2 weeks. And according to the story, it sounds like that is a big area of need for people who find themselves homeless or going to shelters. So great work for her. They did it over 2 weeks. It's cool. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
As a backpacker, as a child, my dad's advice was always, you got to take care of your feet. Apparently, that's a big thing in the military as well. But I imagine if you're homeless or and just marching around all the time in the winter, having cold feet could be really bad for your health eventually. Cold and wet, and yeah, I just think it would be bad. So it's cool. It was cool that they were able to pull this off, even though the high schoolers, anyways, aren't back in class yet. So this was kind of a virtual thing.
Yeah.
And 400, that's a lot of socks.
All right. And
Hero
now,
of the week, as picked by Eric Schwartz.
Yeah, People's Champion of the Week.
People's Champion.
Do you want to do an impromptu Villain of the Week, or should we just table
Oh,
that
you
one?
give me a couple seconds, and I will find you a villain of the week.
I hope it doesn't overlap with our Sirens Banger of the
I've
I think
got
it
it.
is. Yeah, it's
Oh,
that
you
guy.
have your Villain of the Week?
It's COVID-19, Aaron.
Wow.
It's the villain of every week until this pandemic is over.
A true Time Magazine naming you as Person of the Year moment from Editor-in-Chief Eric Schwartz.
Well,
So our Sirens Banger of the Week is man arrested after driving through Penny Playground and leaving scene. The Nightcrawler, Jared Wenzelberger, got some great photos of this using his new drone that show. If you look at the photos, you can see the exact route this gentleman took through one fence and into the playground. He got a lot farther than I would have expected.
yeah, Jared said that on the ground the damage looks a whole lot worse than his aerial photos, and that it is pretty bad. Because at first we heard kind of clipped it. But then when Jared sent the drone up, Cron Air, as we call it around here,
Pretty good.
I just came up with that. But yeah, it looked pretty bad, and it hasn't even been enjoyed yet. That's the saddest thing. It hasn't even been opened.
Well, it sounds like one person enjoyed it.
Someone
Like a
did,
straight shot all the way through. It's crazy. He
Yeah.
got the whole way through.
and we're still waiting on more details. It's been slow. Anytime a suspect is arrested, quote unquote, and taken to a hospital, you can take a long time for him to get in court. So as far as we know, he has not been before a judge just yet, and we don't have his name. So he remains 23-year-old Chehalis man. And
A true D.B. Cooper.
true D.B. Cooper, except for he's in custody and everybody knows who he is, and they're just waiting on toxicology reports. But just like D.B. Cooper in every other possible way.
All right. Time for our favorite segment, Facebook Comments of the Week.
Oh, boy.
On a story about a bill that would ban large capacity magazine gets mixed reviews in the first state Senate committee hearing. There was a lot of people arguing against this bill, and this commenter said, "Tell me, do you carry a fire extinguisher around with you at all times? You know, for protection? Hide them around your house? Is it really big and really strong? Is it capable of suppressing a forest fire? Is it at least bigger than your buddy's fire extinguisher? Do you get together and compare them? Go to fire extinguisher shows? Fondle each other's fire extinguishers?"
Jeez. This guy's putting on a master class.
Yeah, that... Bravo, sir.
Yeah, I might not even... that's just like a heads up to commenters. Like, I might not even agree with you, but that's fine work. Like, that's good work right
He
there.
really got in the weeds, and yeah, he nailed that one.
There's another bill, too, that is drawing some ire. The one to eliminate guns at the Capitol and at demonstrations, peaceful or not. And, yeah... I posted that story earlier this afternoon. I used a Paul Dunn photo I think I referenced on this podcast earlier, but the three guys just armed with their big long rifles standing in front of the governor. That's a photo op that's going to be repeated anytime soon, whether that bill passes or not.
No. And this comment came on the post of the car crash on Highway 12 earlier this week. There was no story on it at that point, but the comment is just... When something tragic happens, what I really care about is the photographer getting his credit, because there was a Nightcrawler photo credit at the end of the post.
Yeah, I don't feel like commenting on that one too much, because I know those kids are pretty messed up. But yeah, if it's long-standing newspaper practice, if somebody writes a story, you put their name on it. If somebody takes a photo, you put their name on it.
This story was Supreme Court rules in case of woman whose home was mistakenly raided by Tacoma police. And the comment is just, are we going to hold weather people accountable for being wrong? Police are human. Everyone makes mistakes. It's hard. It's how people handle themselves to correct for future encounters and how to improve. You know, the weatherman screws up giving you the forecast. Probably not going to knock down your door and barge in.
A tree might, though.
It seems a little different. Seems like a little different situation.
Like a false equivalency, maybe. And I would also mention, I've heard this complaint, and there's things like, people bring up like maybe cops should have insurance or something like that, and people say things like, well, if a doctor kills somebody, they don't have to, nobody has these conversations about that. It's like, well, doctors also have like, you know, insurance, things like that.
Yeah, no, I think in this economy, if someone breaks down your door in the middle of the night, I think you should be entitled to some compensation. I don't recall how much this woman got, but...
maybe a new door.
Yeah,
That's
new
not a
door.
little mistake. That is not a little, oh, it rained a little more. Like, no, that's trauma,
what if,
that's
False
damage.
equivalency.
What if the weatherman purposely doesn't tell you that there's a tornado warning and then you get killed by a tornado? How do you feel about that, Aaron?
Great point, Eric. Great point. I'm glad we took this conversation there.
Rogue weathermen are one of the biggest problems in this
10
country.
out of 10.
Is there only one weatherman?
Jeez.
All right, and now comments on Michael's Retrumplicans column, which ran with a photo of the George Washington statue in Centralia. Somebody skipped over the column and went straight to commenting on the statue of George Washington, the founder of Centralia, saying, "This is the worst attempt at art, proportionally incorrect. Such an eyesore, costing taxpayers $80,000. The statue, as the next commenter points out, was privately funded.
Probably didn't cost $80K either.
No, it did. It was
It
very,
did?
it's very expensive.
Yeah.
I think that might
80K?
even be an undersell. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay. I retract my statement. That's wild.
What a high-level art take from this commenter on the founder of our fine town.
I love that statue. I think it's great. It's got those great signs out around it right now too. The "Love Thy Neighbor"
Yeah, I
with
saw that.
both party symbols. I thought that was great. Nobody's removed those signs or anything, so that's good. Yeah, I think that's great. I also loved the column. Even I know probably a good portion of our readership wouldn't. But what did you think about it, Aaron? Did you read it?
I did. I thought it was good. I thought Michael really was just doing some elitist talking about his hillside mansion on the lake out in Mossy Rock.
But he was talking about his neighbors on the same one. I guess he's heard from some of his neighbors too. He called me a little bit earlier. So
Oh, my neighbors read it. Did not like me talking about him like that.
Michael is a new columnist for the Chronicle.
Good.
For those unfamiliar with him, he was editor from, I don't know when he started, probably 2001. But he was editor right up into 2010, 2011. Then he came back. He was regional editor for a while. So, yeah. Between him and Denny Waller and Brian Mitke all being on the same page, and the opinion page last week, I was thinking of that Star Wars. No one's ever really gone.
With those three still hovering around, do you feel guilty coming into work hungover now? Because I do.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Mitke's column on Rob Lee also had a interesting comment. Somebody just wrote smut, pure smut, which
Jeez.
seemed pretty inappropriate and kind of rude.
Hateful?
I don't know what he was
Yeah.
getting at.
Screwed up.
And then our last comment is not actually a comment, but a review of this fine podcast on Apple Podcasts. Somebody said, quickly becoming the only way I want to find out about local news. Fantastic, lighthearted commentary about local topics.
I feel like that's a backhanded compliment of them being like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to read anymore. Read the
Who
actual
wants
news
to read?
coverage.
You're going to listen to us talk about
Like,
the news.
please also read the coverage.
We're providing sensory options for news here. So, live videos next, right?
Yeah, there is that.
There is a push
fearing-
amongst us.
I'm fearing the day when this podcast goes video.
Everyone write Chad at cronline.com. Let him know you don't want to see our faces. You just want to hear our words.
You'll regret it. You'll regret it if we go video.
We have faces for podcasts.
Yeah. I will do the whole thing in a Daft Punk helmet if it comes to that.
That was your last topic, huh?
That was my last topic, yeah.
Well, you didn't even bring up the biggest news. Tomorrow we can go eat inside.
No, we can?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
25% occupancy. Did you miss that news?
I think I saw it. I wasn't all that worried about it. I don't plan where and when I go out to eat over, what I read in the newspaper.
Well,
Interesting.
interesting from a guy who
What does that
will
mean?
have drinks with me in the tent across the street.
I will. If we go over to the tent and they're like, do you want to go inside? I'll be like, maybe.
25% occupancy,
People are stoked.
plenty of room.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
I forgot you hate our restaurants. That's right.
I eat at our restaurants quite
Just the
often.
local ones.
Just the local. I'm a franchise man through and through. I take all my meals at McDonald's and Taco Bell, sir.
Got a quarter-pounder tramp stamp is what I heard.
Jeez.
I'm about to go stop at Arby's and just slam some big Montanas on my way home. Yeah, that's all we got. What's coming up in Tuesday's paper?
Claudia, what are you working on? I just want to know for practical purposes.
I mean, that story of different restaurants prepping to reopen. We're hearing from some saying, I'm going to keep my tent outside because I'm not sure. Because I don't know, when we're going to swing back into phase one. But we're also hearing people being really stoked. I know McFilers is already planning on bringing some bands up. They want to do shows, albeit at 25% capacity. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of fun to talk to those business owners who are really excited. And then a little blurb on GameStop.
Oh,
And
Stocks?
yeah, GameStop.
a
All
little
right.
bit of stocks in our
Did
local
you stop by the local?
congresswoman.
Did you stop by the local GameStop and see if they all had fat gold chains now and there's a bunch of Ferraris parked in the parking
No,
lot?
I was telling Eric though that last week the way I even started to understand that story was through TikTok, and there's this this economic reporter who has a TikTok and basically was like, hey, do you want to understand the GameStop story, but you don't want it mansplained to you? Let's go. And she did it with candy and like a Guinness beer. I sent it to you, Eric. I don't know if you found it helpful. I thought it was rad.
Wow.
I did get it. Also coming in the paper, we will have, I wrote up a story on the upcoming retirement of United Way of Lewis County Executive Director Debbie Campbell.
Debbie Campbell stepping out, huh?
Not until August, so we got
Wow.
plenty of time. But I was able to spend some time with her and wrote that story up this afternoon. And yeah, that should be in
Is
there.
it going to be like a Major League Baseball retirement season where she announces it before the year, and then every disaster the United Way helps out with, they provide her with like a going away gift?
They
of, like,
should.
golf clubs or something like that.
They should. She'll be a topic, I think, on next week's podcast. So I'll save my love for Debbie Campbell one more week.
All right.
But read that in the paper. We also have so after deadline on Friday, our new crime reporter Emily Fitzgerald, who's doing a great job, wrote up a brief. And I had seen cop cars on my road the other day, and I was like, interesting, but they didn't have their lights on. But she turned in a story, and it was on my very block. A man with a gun and heroin in his pocket was trying to break into a house.
Really?
It wasn't my house. So,
But
I
how
need to-
far down the block was this?
I don't know. It was the 300 block of the same street. So, and I am on the 300 block.
Interesting.
Just have to be like across the street. Anyway, sometimes you learn a lot in the news business, even if you're the editor.
Wow.
And then one other thing of note, I think. Did I have one other thing of note? Oh yeah, Celine Fitzgerald wrote a cool story on a middle school teacher in Centralia who asked her students essentially what would they want people to know about them during the pandemic. And it's very illuminating what these kids are thinking.
Really?
Just in terms of their thoughts. So we're including a lot of what they wrote unedited, just to let people get a peek inside their minds.
Oh,
I'm
that
really
sounds
excited
cool.
to read that. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Very historic. That feels like a story that will
Yeah.
last a long time.
Yeah, and I've read them already, and it's really good. I mean, it's a little concerning in some areas, but the kids were really honest, I think, given the chance to say something that their name's not going to be on. And, yeah, you know, they're scared in a lot of ways, but resilient at the same time. So that'll be another great thing to pick the paper up for.
All right, and with that, we're going to wrap up this edition of News Dump. As always, I remind you, you can subscribe on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you leave us a review on Apple Podcast, we will probably read it. And, as long as it's not too profane or mean.
We're too positive. We don't want to, we don't get a big head. We want to stay humble.
Yeah, we want to keep it real, as the kids are saying. So you can also listen to it on cronline.com if that's how you choose to live your life. Anyway, thank you, and we'll be back next Sunday.